atomic gigantification was a sweeping Japan nation when along came a dude with an ultra attitude, a common rider who's the greatest kicker of Japan. And of all, man, life's too short now, baby, to not talk big now, baby.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, back to a brand new episode of Kaiju Conversation. I'm your host, Elijah, and joining me as always, my lovely co-host.
Hello, I am Rex.
And we are back at it here for the third week of Star Wars month.
Week 3 already. And the best part is, May hasn't even begun yet for us. Can you believe it?
I mean, to be fair, it is like on the cusp of being May. For you, I think it is the last day before May. You're just a few hours away from it.
Yeah, you're right, actually, yeah.
Because is there 30 or 31? There's 30 days in April. So yeah, you're on the cusp of it being May, and I still have about 20 hours before it'll be May. And by the time this episode comes out, I'll be done with my short film. I will have done All Monsters Attack. I'll have my train tickets to G-Fest done. I will have put like $800 in on my car. We're going to have like 2 more episodes recorded. We're like, there's so much that's going to happen by the time this episode goes live for everybody else to hear.
Pretty crazy.
Yeah. But yes, we are back at it here for the third week of Star Wars month. We have one more week and then we're done. And spoiler alert, we're going to take a little break from the weekly uploads.
Yeah. Very, very exhausting.
Man, like, so not only do we have to like set aside like 2 hours to watch the movie, but then we also have to set aside like 2 to 4 hours of research. And then for me, it's also like travel and setting up. And for you, I know it's setting up.
And editing.
And then it's editing and then recording. And then there's just planning. Like this recording, we had to chat a little bit on like delaying it. And like when we were going to like record. And even then, we're still 3 hours late to when we were going to record.
Yeah.
There's so much that goes into this. And I think... I mean, after this, we're taking a week off. Little bit, but all the hard work will pay off. And think about this. This is going to be our last week recording weekly. Because after this, we have, you have a week off. I definitely don't. I definitely have at least like 2 recordings left. I have a live stream probably and at least 1 or 2 recordings. I have to edit 2 bonus episodes still, so I'm running behind on my work. And then like when I get back from vacation after your week off, I have to record and you have to record. And then we still have 1 more before we take a break. And then I have to do 1. There's a lot. We're never going to have a breathing room.
Especially you, it seems.
But yes, we are back with Star Wars month, but before we get into that, Rex, how have you been, buddy?
Oh, absolutely wonderful. I haven't been as busy as you have, but still been slammed by life, unfortunately, this past week.
Yeah,
somehow I'm still managing to keep up with these weekly episodes in the editing, so that's good at least.
I mean, I gotta say, I'm really proud of how well we've been able to do this. But I'm not gonna miss the weekly uploads. I'm gonna be pretty happy when we slow down a little bit.
I am going to be relieved.
Yeah, the year of Kaiju Conversation is a very exhausting year. I will say Next year, we're not going to be doing this much. We're going to slow down just a tad. Not a lot, just a tad, though. I think. I hope.
Well, we haven't planned the whole schedule yet, so...
This is true. This is very true.
Subject to change.
This is true. But we should have a little more free time at that point, so it won't be as awful. Maybe.
That would be nice.
Yeah. But have you watched any Tokusatsu?
A little bit. A little. Last time I think I mentioned that I was watching the reboot of the Ju-On franchise, and pretty much straight after the recording, I did some stuff and then just popped on Ju-On: The Final Curse.
So with that, you have watched all of Ju-On, the Japanese side, right?
Japanese films, yes.
And all you have left is it Grudge
2,
Grudge
and
3?
Grudge 3, yes.
And okay. And then you're done.
I know.
And then you will have successfully watched all of the Ring films and the Ju-On films.
Actually, I still need to watch the Ring Virus.
Oh. Fair enough.
Yeah. That's the only one I haven't seen for Ring.
Gotcha. And then what are you going to start horror-wise after that? Are you going to do One Missed Call? Are you going to do Pulse?
I don't know. I'll have to think about it. I mean, I need to continue the Tommy A series a bit. I need to watch. I think Replay is the next one I need to see, being the third film.
I mean, if you do One Missed Call, you only have 4 movies and like 6 short films.
6 short films? What the hell?
There's one for One Missed Call 3 final, and I think there's like 3 for One Missed Call 2. I don't think One Missed Call 2 has a title besides One Missed Call 2.
Damn.
If you do Pulse, you only have 1 Japanese film and 3 American movies.
Mm-hmm. I've seen half of Pulse.
When we talk about Pulse, I feel like we'll be hated because I think we share a similar opinion on that. But I don't want to dive too much into that.
Mm-hmm. Look, I'm willing to give it another chance. I don't know how I'll make it through it, but I'm willing to give it another chance.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
But it would be better with more Koji Yakusho.
Mm-hmm. You could start the Haunted Village trilogy that Shimizu's doing.
The Shimizu? Oh, yeah. I mean, a new one comes out like later this year, I think. So
Yes. Mm-hmm. You could watch the American version of Dark Water if you haven't already.
It is on Disney Plus here, so maybe.
There's so much you could do to knock out the major J-horror stuff.
I mean, you never know. I could go on the lower budget side too. Watch maybe something like Carved.
This is true. Maribito?
Maybe. Or hell, even knock out some Tsukamoto films.
Yes.
I knew you'd like that one.
I did. So, J-horror, I feel like we talk a lot of J-horror.
I know.
Good,
as we should.
Beyond watching the final Ju-On movies, what other tokusatsu have you watched?
Well, I'm getting pretty close to the halfway mark of Kamen Rider V3. Pretty
nice. Close. How is that series?
Pretty good. A lot of 2-parters, I must say. Which is pretty surprising, but honestly, a welcome change of pace.
So, Kamen Rider V3 was 1973 through 74?
Yeah, I believe so.
Okay. I was going to say, I wonder if it had anything to do with, like, Return of Ultraman, but that was 71 to 72. I mean, Ace, which was 72 to 73, had a lot of 2-parters, if I remember correctly.
In addition to V3, though, I'm trying to get back into watching Ultra Q since, I got most of the way through that series, but then I went full throttle into Kamen Rider, and so it kind of got put on the back burner. So I've got only a few episodes left of that. The last episode I just watched was the one with like the giant octopus.
Yeah, that's I mean, Ultra Q is actually pretty easy to sit through. There's only like 24 episodes, right?
28.
28?
Yeah.
Yeah, I knew it was like half of an Ultra show.
Yeah. It's a pretty short show.
That time. Yeah. I need to sit through it. I haven't watched Ultra Q in like years.
I must say, I was surprised watching this episode of Ultra Q, the one with the giant octopus, and just thinking, this is literally just the King Kong vs. Godzilla, like, Faroe Island sequence stretched into an Ultra Q episode.
I mean, I guess we could say Subaraya stole from Godzilla before Godzilla stole from Subaraya.
I mean, he took the suits from Godzilla.
Quite a few of them. Because you had
G-Man
Manda
himself.
You had Manda, Godzilla, King Kong,
Baragon,
Giant
Octopus from
Giant Octopus, Odaku. Rodan, I think, also got taken.
Yeah, they use a Rodan prop for Larugius, however it's pronounced.
And then countless sound effects and beam effects.
Yeah. Even stock footage.
Yeah.
Because, stock footage from Rodan, stock footage from King Kong vs. Godzilla.
There's a shot from Invasion of Astro Monster that was reused in Ultra 7, I think, and then Return of Ultraman. I think so. It's the scene where...
Oh, is it like the
people running?
The building?
Yes.
Yep.
Yes.
Okay, yeah, I know what you're talking about.
And I'm pretty sure even some buildings.
Maybe. I mean, wouldn't be shocking, because, the Godzilla series has shared buildings between its own films numerous times, so wouldn't be shocking for Super-Eye to use some of the Godzilla buildings for the Ultra series.
And let's not forget actors, because Kenji Sahara and all them got some
Akira
roles.
Akihiko Hirata.
I don't think Takarada ever did. Did he?
I said Hirata.
I know, but did Takarada? I don't think he did.
I don't think so.
He was too high profile.
Yeah, I was going to say, maybe he thought TV was too low bar for him.
Yeah, Mr. Handsome only does film roles. But yeah, I mean, that's good. Ultra Q is... I need to rewatch it. It's been a long time since I have seen it. And when I watched it, I remember not liking it a lot. But I also went in expecting it to be color and dubbed. I was naive. And when it wasn't in color and when it wasn't dubbed, I was like, oh my God. But since then, I've sat through Ultraman Taro, which has made me reconsider all of my life choices.
And since then, you've understood that subs are good.
But I still say dubs are superior.
We are not the same.
We are not. You are wrong and I am right.
How am I wrong?
Just your opinion on things.
Like what?
Evangelion.
Evangelion is incredible.
Your listing for the J-horror movies. Your opinions on Anno.
Okay, I'll agree. The J-horror, I take it all back just to put Ring at the top now. I've come to my senses and realized Ring in the times I've now seen it since that. I've come to my senses and realized Ring is incredible.
Fair enough. But beyond Kamen Rider V3 and Ultra Q, have you watched any other tokusatsu?
Well, I did watch a movie for today, I believe. Yeah, I watched
the next Star Wars film in the franchise.
I think so.
Yeah,
but you're gonna have. So was Hiroyuki Sanada in it by any chance? Because I watched the film with him. Oh, great, great. So are we covering Tom Cruise's The Last Samurai today?
No, we're covering The Bullet Train.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't watch Bullet Train. I did watch The Last Samurai.
Oh.
Sonata was very cool in it, even though he's barely in it.
I mean, fair. You know, it's all fun and games until you realize oh my god, I can't say his name. Sonata. I'm just going to call him Sonata. Is in literally the second biggest movie of all time.
What, Avengers Endgame?
Yes. For a cameo role, sure, but nonetheless.
Yeah. I mean, he's probably, by that credit alone, he's probably one of, if not the most high-profile, like, toku actor out there.
Oh, absolutely. But before we get into the cast, because that's my job.
Yeah, but I gotta steal it just to mention Hiroyuki Sanada, our favorite star of Ring.
Yes, I mean, you're not wrong. Like, he's like the golden child of Ring. That's what Ring's been missing for decades, is bringing him back.
Yes. Oh my god. Adapt Loop. Adapt Birthday. Oh my god.
To be fair, Birthday did get adapted.
Yeah, but they only adapted like 1/3 of it. Just adapt the actual story titled Happy Birthday in it. Please. Oh my god. The movie should not be called Birthday.
Fair enough. But, you know, for me, I only... For now.
Yes.
For now.
Next episode, I can't promise I won't bring it up again.
I mean, it just... we always come back to it. It's a loop. We just spiral.
Yeah, shut up. We're not doing this bit again. We're not doing this bit again. We're not doing this bit again.
I know. I used it up last time.
Editing. I had to listen to it in editing.
You know, with my busy schedule, because I mean, I've been busy working on my car, working at work, planning for All Monsters Attack, and filming my next short film. I haven't had time to really watch anything. Besides the next Star Wars movie. We are now on to the third Star Wars film. Everybody knows it. It's probably the most prolific of all of the Star Wars films.
Yeah. Definitely.
If I remember right, because of the war in space did so well, they wanted to quickly make a sequel, but this time they wanted to give it like the biggest budget possible.
Yeah.
In fact, like the biggest budget Japan had ever produced at the time.
Yeah, and they got a pretty high profile, or at least soon to be high profile Japanese director to work on it.
Mm-hmm. And a pretty stacked cast, all things considered. They decided to go all out, but what's weird is they went from Toho to Toei.
Yeah,
which is why
Tokushinka.
Yes. Which is why you will never see a actual box set of all the Star Wars movies because of this. From this point on, there was some rights problems with the Star Wars franchise, so we'll unfortunately never get a true full box set.
You never know. Maybe Shout Factory could do their magic, like they did with Friday the 13th.
Shout Factory might, or maybe Criterion, or Discotheque. You know, any of those companies.
Yeah, give us the original Star Wars quadrilogy on Blu-ray. The real films. Not whatever George Lucas made up after watching all of these.
Yeah. So, what is the movie we're covering? It's like the war in space, but it's different.
It's like a place where fantasies are real and reality is fantastic.
Is it Warning from Space?
No.
Oh, what is it?
It would be kind of weird to do Warning from Space after War in Space.
That's right. Yes, Warning from Space is like a dumb knockoff movie that came actually
all of these films.
That's not true. I'm not that stupid. It's all for the bit.
No, he actually is that stupid.
Don't believe Rex.
Believe what you want to believe, viewers, but the truth is out there.
But it came out April 28th, 1978 in Japan. It was,
A day after, a day before we're filming this, was the anniversary.
2 days ago. 2 days ago, it
Not
was
2 days ago.
Hang on, 88, 98, 08, 18. It was the 45th anniversary 2 days ago of this movie.
Yesterday, not 2 days ago.
It's the 30th.
Yeah, it came out on the 29th.
28th.
29th.
Maybe it premiered on the 28th? My sources said the 28th.
Huh. Mine said the 29th.
Discrepancy!
I'm going to say you're wrong and I'm right.
I mean, to be fair, when I got the budget for this, it said between 5 and 6 million. Mm-hmm. So, like, there's like a one gap between all the numbers for this.
I mean, from what I understand, it kind of depends on which company was saying it, because I think one of the companies, either Toei or Tokushinka, I don't remember, said that it was a 1 billion yen project, while the other company was saying it was 1.5 billion yen. So...
But either way, it was the biggest budget for a Japanese film at the time.
Yes.
Since then, there's been plenty of other films that have surpassed it. But
even from the same director.
Right. Which we'll get into. But I will say this film still is in the top 50.
Really?
Because the top 10 ends at like 1.2 billion. There's not been a whole lot of films since that have like...
What is number one, out of curiosity?
Number one is... I have it. It is... let me...
Evangelion?
Oh, no, it's the Final Fantasy movie.
Oh.
The Final Fantasy...
animated one from a few years back?
Yes, it had a 16.7 billion yen budget. It actually like destroyed the company and was a financial failure. Number two, interestingly enough, is a film from the 90s called Solar Crisis. It was a co-production between Japan and the United States, and it's tokusatsu, so eventually we will cover it.
Damn.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think I'm familiar with this one.
You will eventually. Eventually you will be...
Yes, I will be forced to be.
Yes, you will. So there's a lot to look forward to when it comes to the big budget Japanese tokusatsu films that we will eventually cover. Mm-hmm. But without further ado, I think we should just tell the viewers what we're covering, because they totally didn't look at the podcast square or the title for this.
Mm-hmm.
We are covering the third film in the Star Wars franchise, Message from Space.
Yes, the 1978 Toei film.
Which was directed by Kenji Fukusaku. He also co-wrote the film. Mm-hmm. For anybody, and I don't want to dive into the cast and crew because there's a lot right now, but for anybody who doesn't know who Kenji Fukusaku is, he directed The Green Slime, The Battle Without Honor or Humanity series, Shogun Samurai, which we mentioned last episode, mm-hmm. And a few other times, Virus, aka The Day of Destruction, Samurai Reincarnation, Legend of Eight Samurai, and the very popular action movie Battle Royale. So he has, and that's just like a
sequel.
This is true. He did. And his son directed the sequel. Besides that one scene,
yeah.
Fukusaku has done a ton of stuff. Like, I don't want anybody to think that he's just done that. He has done a ton of stuff. I just picked the stuff that people might recognize or would
his
know
most well-known work.
Yes. Do you want to talk about production here, Rex, or do you want to talk about the movie first?
Well, let's give a brief introduction to the film for its production, I'd say.
Do you want to start us off?
Sure. So, this film sort of began in 1975, interestingly enough, before Star Wars had come out, from the release of all films, Jaws.
Mm-hmm. It was the birth of the blockbuster that inspired Wasn't it the CEO of Toei to like look into doing his own blockbuster?
Yeah, Shigeru Okada was inspired by Jaws to sort of make some more big films, you know? And so this led to the creation of one film known as The Legend of Dinosaurs and Monster Birds, but also a project known as Devil Manta.
Yes.
Which was had the involvement of director Nobuo Hajime Sato and a screenplay by Susumu Takahashi, with also collaboration from Shotaro Ishinomori, who was the creator of Kamen Rider, and the other two I mentioned have been very involved in both the Kamen Rider and other Toei Tokusatsu series like Metal Heroes and Sentai.
And Devil Manta was going to be a kaiju movie. It was about a giant space manta ray that came to destroy the world. And that was just one of, I think there was 3 drafts for like big budget blockbusters for Toei to produce. Yeah. And none of them got off the ground. I do want to point out, to me, it felt like they might have reused some sets from Legends of Dinosaurs and Monster Birds for Message from Space, specifically towards the end of the film when the planet's caving in and like pulling apart. The cinematography there felt a lot like Legend of Dinosaurs and Monster Birds. I don't know if you've seen it. I just recently watched it for the first time, but I definitely recommend it. Okay. But to me, it just looked very similar.
I mean, I'm sure a lot of the same staff had worked on the film, so maybe it could also just be, you know, a similar visual style contributing to that.
But keep going.
Eventually, in 1977, a little film called Star Wars may have been released in the United States. It's not the original Star Wars, though, because Hidden Fortress exists. So, you know.
You know, it's more of just a wannabe.
Yeah, exactly. And during this time, Toho produced The War in Space, and then also came about the Space Battleship Yamato series. I almost said Yamato.
Which, in 1978, correct me if I'm wrong, was cut up and made into a compilation film.
I believe so. I don't know too much about Space Battleship Yamato. But, yeah, so the the head of Toei saw Star Wars and saw, you know, that Toho had already capitalized it and decided to change, to essentially just scrap Devil Manta and shift their focus onto a more sci-fi space opera type project, much in the same vein as, you know, Star Wars, believe it or not.
Which is where Toei brought Fukasaku Ishinomori, who, as we've mentioned, was already one of the minds. Right. He had worked on Kamen Rider, Super Sentai, Kikaida, Inazu-Man, Robot Detective, Cyborg 009, Golden Bat, Skullman, I mean. And he even went on to inspire like Go Nagai and was the mentor who would for Go Nagai, who would develop like Devilman and Cutie Honey and all that.
Mentor, correct me if I'm wrong, but wasn't Ishinomori's mentor Osamu Tezuka?
I believe so, yes.
Yeah.
And he was relatively...
You were about to... lineage of mentors when you think about it.
And can you explain to anybody who doesn't know who he is, why that's so...
He created Astro Boy, which has been hugely influential on both the manga and anime scene. I think he also created Tetsujin 28, if I'm
Yes,
right.
I'm like 99% sure he did. Yes.
Yeah.
Which like basically jump-started the mech genre.
Yeah. one of the most important manga creators of all time, essentially.
I mean, I'd argue all three of them are like legends.
100%. All three are absolute legends in Japanese pop culture in general.
So, out of the writing team, you had Fukusaku, who had previously done a space opera, The Green Slime, and had done Samurai. And then you had Ishinomori, who took inspiration from a novel from the 1800s called Nanso Satomi Hakenden,
yes.
Hakenden, which is translated to the Eight Dog Chronicles. That manga basically follows this clan as they're about the Satomi clan as they're about to be wiped out. They find 8 warriors to help defend them. The novel was written by I hate this myself for forgetting who wrote it. Takizawa Bakin, B-A-K-I-N, Bacon?
Wait, how's it spelled again?
B-A-K-I-N.
Bakin.
Takizawa Bakin.
Bakin.
It was a serial novel, so like a novel like would come out, and it was like a 28-year period. From like I think it was 1814 all the way to 1842.
Oh wow!
That the novel was produced.
Wow!
So it's a very long novel, but essentially it's about these 8 heroes being chosen to save the Satomi clan by the invaders, which you can very much see in Message from Space. And from
definitely.
my understanding, that was something Ishinomori wanted. Like, that's where that influence came from.
I had it written down who came up with that, or not written down. I saw it, but I didn't write it down.
I'm pretty sure it was Ishinomori, because because there's 3 writers for this film. The last one, Masahiro Noda, he was somebody who backed Space Battleship Yamato. He was one of the supporters for that anime and the compilation film. But not only that, he was one of the lead people in charge of bringing Star Wars to Japan. He translated the Star Wars books and supervised the television broadcasts for the Star Wars film. So you had Fukusaku, who came in with kind of that samurai background, which you can really see in this movie. Ishinomori, who brought the novelization adaptation, and then Noda, who brought the Star Wars influence. And those 3 creative minds together meshed Message from Space.
With that bit of context, do you think we should begin with the film?
I mean, we absolutely can. Full disclosure, I watched the United Artists English adaptation.
As did I.
Okay. I wasn't sure if we watched the same version or not. We never communicate that. We just watch one and we talk about it.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, in the United States, Message from Space is only available through a now out-of-print DVD or Blu-ray. Shout Factory licensed it through MGM, which owns the United Artists Library, and that's how they release Message from Space. They didn't work with Toei whatsoever, which is unfortunate, but a lot of Toei's films are like that, such as Terror Beneath the Sea, another Sonny Chiba title, Neptune, Invasion of the Neptune Men, Prince of Space, Johnny Sacco and His Giant Flying Robot, and Voyage into Space. Those 2 titles specifically are also owned by United Artists, now owned by MGM, which is now owned by Amazon, if you want to follow the linear passage of who owns the rights to this stuff. So now Amazon owns the rights to Message from Space, Johnny Sacco and His Giant Flying Robot, and Voyage into Space.
God forbid they actually do anything with those rights.
And they, I'm pretty sure, own Young Gary Monster from the Deep as well.
Wait, really?
Because the AIP library was purchased by Orion, which was purchased by MGM, which was purchased by Amazon. So it's maybe somewhere in an Amazon warehouse now. There's a prints of like Mothra versus Godzilla and Destroy All Monsters and all the Gamera films, and anything that AIP released. So that could be like Frankenstein or Hedorah, Atragon, I think, as well. Or
I mean, Atragon is on Amazon Prime, so
I mean, the likelihood of Amazon going through the MGM, Orion, AIP vault to like get the stuff is pretty slim.
Yeah.
I mean, Arrow already did that prior to Amazon's purchase, and they got some really nice scans of all the Gamera AI TV versions. But I don't see them ever going back and like doing this unless Shout Factory or like Arrow. Arrow has really promoted Fukusaku, so maybe eventually they do a Message from Space or Green Slime release. I don't know. Hopefully. But yeah, going into this film, we were introduced to some landscape shots of some of the miniatures, and I have to say, I love the miniatures in this movie.
Oh yeah, they looked really nice. I know a lot of people criticize the special effects of this film. Like a lot of reviews, even from like, you know, some of the Tokusatsu sources that I was reading, criticize the effects. But honestly, I thought for the most part the effects in this film look pretty good for 70s. Like, it's still got that, and it's got a bit of a cheesy look, obviously, but all things considered, you know, looks all right, I'd say.
Right, and another thing, and I don't mean to say this to bash Toei, but Toei on the Tokusatsu side, like,
they are not
lacking.
They are not what Toho or like 60 Tsuburaya were in any capacity.
Right, but I think in this case, comparing War in Space to Message from Space, War in Space is not as detailed as Message from Space.
Definitely. I mean, War in Space is a shorter film with maybe not less, but
less special effects.
Yeah,
I would say so.
Yeah,
because
especially
there's only,
when you consider the runtime.
Right, and there's only like there's four or five spacecrafts in that. In Message from Space, there's at least half a dozen.
Yeah. I mean, there should be more special effects in this film, given it's more expensive.
Yeah.
And the special effects budget took about 40% of the budget.
Right. And then the rest of it went to Vic Marlowe. Morrow. Oops.
Yeah, I think you need to work on your English pronunciations.
I do. I'm horrible with names. But no, and even like, I'm going to be honest, the spacecraft in this reminded me a lot of Alien. I don't know if you, I mean,
like the Gavana.
Yes, the Gavana, and all the like tiny spacecraft. I mean, like the detail on them.
Yeah, I didn't pick up on like the Alien one, but just thinking about it, yeah, it actually does look kind of similar to the Nostromo. Which is funny because it predates Alien.
It does. Granted, like also Star Wars had a similar look to it.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely felt like the Star Destroyer vibes in the design, but honestly, you actually are kind of right about the Nostromo aspect as well.
Which I love. Like, I will always welcome 70s spacecraft looks.
Oh, 100%.
They were so detailed and like bumpy and like shadowy. And I love that about like the retro looking spacecraft. But after we get some establishing shots of a now destroyed planet, we also have an English narrator that's basically doing the Transformers series narrator before he did it.
Even sounds a lot like him.
He does. I was like, I'm expecting him to be like, the year is 2005. And the Autobots have established bases on Earth's moon, Cybertron's moons, and Earth.
They should get the original narrator to do Res as a base.
Or they should get him to do the first Transformers animated movie narration. I don't know if you saw that news headline.
Yeah, I did. Transformers 1.
I love the fact that on Twitter, that Variety article had like a fact checkers. Yes. And it was like, for more context, there was a 1985 or 86 Transformers movie. Animated movie.
That was animated.
I was like, I love that. That's perfect.
The Twitter fact check feature is so good. It's so funny. I love it.
It's funny. But before we get too far ahead of ourselves, we're also introduced to a dying race of people that have basically went through genocide as the Empire wannabes have taken over their planet because it was once a very lovely place.
The Gurvanas as the peace. Well, the victimized race is called.
What are they called again?
I think they're the Gelusians, or at least that's the name of the planet is like Gelusia.
Yes. But the Gurvanas, I guess, are just looking for the best planet to
colonize,
make themselves. Well, later on in the film, it's established that it's like for their palace. So I guess they just want something to like brag about.
Yeah.
Is this all about bragging rights?
I guess so.
We also get, during this whole sequence, we get the exposition dump about how these space seeds, there's 8 of them, will travel to 8 warriors that will help save the race of people, what's left of them at least, and keep them from going extinct. They look like Dragon Balls.
Yeah.
And what's funny is
the original story did inspire Dragon Ball.
It did, which I thought was really cool. Even one of the producers on this show, or not show, this movie, Takaiwa, he was a producer on Dragon Ball, Sailor Moon, Yu-Gi-Oh, and Digimon for Toei.
Oh wow!
So it all goes.
Dragon Ball is a Toei franchise. I forgot
it
about
is.
That.
So
it's their biggest franchise, arguably.
It is. So I mean, Message from Space kind of was like, I think it was both Patrick Mackes and August Ragone both noted that Message from Space, while kind of a bomb on the international scale, is very important to the tokusatsu and just Japanese culture because it predates so much. And while being a Star Wars knockoff, it definitely like projected Toei into like eventually doing Dragon Ball.
I mean, even as a Star Wars knockoff, it's interesting that there's like 1 or 2 sequences here that seemingly, predicted future Star Wars films.
And I want you to, I didn't pick up on that. I'm not much into Star Wars, but I definitely please tell me where those are at, because I'm really curious about that one.
So the sequence near the end, that's sort of like where they're in the trench and they're trying to destroy like the fortress.
Yes.
Yeah. So that whole sort of like trench run sequence, that is basically just the attack on Death Star, the second Death Star in Return of the Jedi, which didn't come out until like 1983.
It makes me wonder if Lucas, I mean, a pre-established fan of Japanese cinema, it makes me wonder if he watched War in Space and Message from Space and took any inspiration from it.
Possibly. I mean, there's a couple other authors who speculated the same thing.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, I was reading J.L. Carosa's book because he had a brief section on Message from Space, and he poses a very similar question to what you're saying in that.
Interesting. I also know that Toei would later reuse footage from Message from Space in Bioman, Just Beyond Spielbahn, Matilda, Jira,
Really?
Jan Person, and Buru Saweto.
Do you know what sort of footage did they use? Was it like any like the miniature stuff or something?
It was the miniature stuff.
Okay.
Destruction sequences and whatnot. They used in episodes of those Metal Hero series.
That makes sense. I mean, speaking of like its influence on like Metal Heroes, I believe so this film has a fair bit of like compositing, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I believe so they use like a new type of system. I think it's referred to as the ECG system in my sources.
Okay.
And basically they would film scenes and they would be able, with this new method, they would be able to composite essentially however they wanted. They had a lot of freedom with compositing compared to like previous systems. But the only issue is they'd have to convert it to video, leading to the sort of lower quality, grainier look.
Right.
And from what I understand, that is essentially, from this point forth, that is essentially what Toei would use for most, if not all, their compositing for the next few years. So they'd use it in Metal Heroes, Kamen Rider Black, etc., etc.
Right, because it's and I'm pretty sure Tsuburaya would end up following suit because
probably
all of their tokusatsu stuff was basically on video.
Yeah. Tsuburaya's, yeah. They mastered that on video, I believe, if I remember right. Like Tiga, Fruit Dao.
But so was all of Super Sentai, to my understanding.
Yeah, and Kamen Rider as well. Up until around like mid to late 2000s, when they switched to HD video or digital, I believe. Yeah, I think. I could be wrong. There's people who know a lot more about the history of Kamen Rider's masters than I do.
I mean, fair.
And I will say, though, that's the point, anyways.
The compositing, I wrote in my notes that the headshots of the spacecraft coming towards the camera look atrocious. It's really shaky, really grainy, really dark, and it never really worked. Which is something I wasn't a huge fan of.
I'll say I'm used to it, having seen Kamen Rider Black and a little bit of Toei's other stuff. It's fairly common in those shows.
Okay, so it just became a Toei trope eventually.
I guess you could call it that,
or I guess effect. Practice or
it's not uncommon to see in Toei productions from after this film.
So I mean that goes to show that like this film was like fresh meat for Toei when it comes to their effects department. Like they following this movie, they I mean I would argue that because of how big they made this budget, they kind of revolutionized their effects studios. Which led to bigger and better products, because from what I've heard, like Kamen Rider Black and Black RX are way better compared to the other Kamen Rider shows. Like following them, like
the suits in Black are fantastic, honestly. Like the Kaijin suits compared to like 71, there is a substantial increase in the quality of the suits. They are very, very detailed in Black by comparison.
And another
Kaijin.
And something else I wanted to point out about the budget. is this film came out right before the oil crisis of 1980 for Japan. So, like, this was on the brisk of, like, financial collapse. So, like, if this film had came out any later, it probably would have bombed and would have ruined Toei with that budget, considering that budget. But because it came out when it did, it was able to, like, hold its own. And because Toei spent all that money on those effects for Message from Space, they could reuse those assets for their upcoming tokusatsu stuff, which probably led to them having the upper hand, which kind of projected them into being able to produce content as Tsuburaya especially, like, stepped back because they couldn't do that anymore. So on it, like, I know there's people that have asked the question, how did Toei continue to produce content well into the 1980s following the oil crisis? And maybe it was because of, you know, for my short film, I've put in a lot more money on it, but it's assets I can reuse. And because of that, I'll have better content. And because I'll have better content, like, I don't have to spend as much on future endeavors.
Yeah.
Hopefully. So at least from my standpoint, I would argue that because of Toei's budgetary use on this film, it helped them stay afloat and be the definitive tokusatsu production company for the next decade and a half.
Perhaps.
But that, I mean, we're way off the plot of this film at this point. We're over here telling you why Message from Space is a very important film.
Yeah. And we've barely even talked about our villains yet.
We have. But I mean, we don't really go very far with the villains. With
they're kind of just introduced to them, and that's it.
We have our Darth Vader wannabe,
and our Emperor, predating the actual Emperor from Star Wars.
This is true, and she's sitting in a throne.
Exactly.
So that's actually a really good point. I never thought about that.
Yeah.
But yes, we're established. We're given more context. Our Emperor is actually a little more experienced than the actual villain, which, I mean, leads to the eventual demises because he's so cocky and not as careful as our Emperor is suggesting he should be.
Yeah.
It should also be established it's mother and son.
Yeah.
Because he's okay with letting the princess and her sidekick get away, whereas she's like, you need to destroy them. They've sent out the space seeds, and because of that, if all 8 of the warriors band together, we're screwed. And thus begins the Star Wars trope of the Empire going after Princess Leia, except it's the Gurvanas going after. Her name is Princess
Esmeralda?
Yes, Emeralida. Emeralda?
Let's just call her the princess for simplicity.
The princess, yes. So, I mean, they almost defeat her. They're, like, pummeling her ship, which looks a lot like the villain ship from War in Space.
Yeah.
Both are designed to be, like, actual ships, which I thought was interesting. Which, I mean, that's taking direct influence from Space Battleship Yamato. At least to my understanding, like, that's where that comes from. Whereas in War in Space, it was not only that, but the Goten took influence from Battleship Yamato. In this,
and the Gotengo.
Whereas in this film, it's just that ship is taking influence from Space Battleship Yamato because Space Battleship Yamato is based off of a boat. Following this, we're introduced to our 3 main we're introduced to our 3 main characters. First with, of course, the American of the cast, one of them at least. No, not yet. We're introduced to the female first. Maya. And of course, she's sitting in a space shuttle drinking, which I thought was just really funny. She is the daughter to a very rich general, and because of some home problems, she's being shipped off to another planet while things are settled at home. And on her trip, space pirates, what are they called?
I don't know. I couldn't really understand what they were saying.
We'll call them space pirates or space rebels or something. They're like punks. They're space punks. They speed around the galaxy, going in places they're not supposed to, just like hijacking and having fun.
Yeah.
They interrupt her travel, and she's actually really excited to see them. She thinks they're really cool. This is also where we're introduced to space fireflies, which is nuclear waste. To my understanding, it's like atoms from nuclear weapons or nuclear power that have just
been dumped in space?
Been dumped in space, which I wonder if that was anything to do with like nuclear waste and how we don't deal with it and eventually it'll leave a mark. I don't know. I do know later on in the film there's some nuclear metaphors, but we'll get into that when we get to that point.
Huh. Don't think I picked up on those. I'm actually curious.
While they're having their fun, our space rebels, the police, or it's the Space Federation. That's what they're called, right?
Something like that, yeah.
The Space Federation shows up and tells them to pull over. And they're like, nah, we're not doing that.
Let's just risk our lives.
So they play chicken and like they mess up the police spacecraft, but their spacecraft also start to break. We find out that it's because the space seeds lodged themselves in the spacecraft and have led them to crash landing. Funny enough, when they crash land, they suddenly transport to Earth because there's electric poles in the background and trees, while they're supposed to be on a different planet. It should also be established that Earthlings at this point in time found a way to travel throughout space and have colonized every planet in the Milky Way and beyond. They don't really expand on like where this takes place and what's going on, but we're just kind of told to
we're just kind of thrown into the world.
Yes.
With minimal context.
So then it cuts from all of that to our two main characters, which are the space rebels. One of them played by Hiroyuki Sanada, and the other one, Philip Kasanoff.
The less cool one.
The less cool one. Their character names are Aaron and Shiro. Mm-hmm. They're dishwashers for this cantina
whom are in debt to not Jabba the Hutt,
but another fat dude. But they're not in debt to him technically. They're in debt to Jack,
true.
who's our Han Solo of the group. That feels more like a circus.
I mean, honestly, I feel like these guys feel more like the Han Solo.
Everybody's Han Solo in this. There's no Luke Skywalker. There is an Obi-Wan. There's two Obi-Wans and there's three Han Solos. But in the cantina, there's a bunch of women dancing in like golden bikini-looking outfits, which was a Star Wars thing I picked up. I wrote in my notes predicting the metallic bikini that Princess Leia would wear in Return of the Jedi. I thought that, I mean, I don't know if that's like at all true, but like I thought it was cool that it did predate that.
Mm-hmm. You just wanted to write about metallic bikinis.
No. But yes, so Jack lent 30 gold pieces to Shiro and Aaron to fix their spaceships.
Yeah.
The actual guy who had the money tells Jack he wants it back. Jack then tells him he doesn't have it. That's when our Jabba the Hutt character, who I'm pretty sure is nameless,
yeah,
breaks into the dishwashing room and is like, you need to give me my money back in 30 minutes or I'm going to kill all of you. And we never see this dude again.
Yep.
This subplot is dropped. Well, it's not dropped, like it's relevant, but by the time it's relevant, it feels like 30 minutes has passed. It feels like 3 days have passed. So, like, did they escape? Did he, die? What happened? Nobody knows.
He just forgot about them. He forgot about his money,
Apparently. And this is where Maya appears after the little kerfuffle and is like, hey! So we find out she knows them. They're all friends. Jack knows her too. They're all friends.
Yeah.
Somehow. This is where we're introduced that she's rich and whatnot, and that she's willing to help them get the 30 pieces if they help her go get
a space firefly for some
space
reason.
Fireflies.
I guess just because it looked pretty.
Yes.
Gotta love that pretty nuclear waste.
Yeah. That's what I was like. They say it's nuclear waste and you want to keep it. Very American. Also, I forgot to add, this is where we're introduced to General Garuda.
Yes,
he's introduced as
character.
Yes. He's introduced by shooting a rocket off into space, which is a funeral rocket for his robots of 30 years. Biba 1. And we're also introduced to Biba 2, his new robot.
Who makes R2-D2 noises.
Yes. There's also Star Trek sounds during this sequence, or it's during the sequence where they're working on the space shuttles, our space rebels are. There's Star Trek bridge sounds that are mixed in. I
mean, the soundtrack for this movie, every time a character, every time the seeds are relevant, so whenever there's a shot that focuses on the character looking at the seeds, they play this track, and it's basically just Princess Leia's theme from Star Wars, almost beat for beat. The borderline the same song, and they play it 8 or 9 times throughout the movie, if not more. And then they play I think there's another theme from Star Wars that they play. I don't know what theme it is specifically, but it's some sort of action theme. It might be the Rebels theme or something that gets played as well.
Yeah. So then he's video called by his superior, and he's like, what was that missile? And he's like, it was a funeral for my robots.
And he resigns before getting fired.
Real Captain Gordon moment there.
Actually, that's exactly what I was thinking.
I mean, they both have the same mustache.
This is true. And they're both American.
This is very true. You're not wrong. So, from here, he walks off with Boba 2, and then we're transferred back to our main cast. They go look... Main cast, Vic gets the top billing, but they are our main characters.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
They go looking for the space fireflies to get the 30 pieces of gold so they can pay off their debt. They get there. They find out they can't actually get them, and she's still like, well, we're going to get them, or you're not going to get money. Mm-hmm. It's okay.
Yeah.
Just whatever.
But eventually they spot the ship, the princess's ship, and take an interest in that.
And they go on it, and they find... Also, during this whole thing, gravity and air,
that
what?
That was one thing I noticed where I'm like, usually you'd have to have... Usually in these types of movies, you have a full spacesuit. You're not just covering your mouth and nose. And, there are characters who don't even bother to cover their mouth and nose, like Vic Morrow later when he's in space.
Right. And that's the thing is like, so when they go out to get the space fireflies, they put these masks over their face and they have these like space suits, but they don't really do much. Mm-hmm. It's 3 of our main characters and Jack stays in the ship, but Jack doesn't wear like a mask to get out. So you'd think it's like an airlock, right? No, there's just a hatch out the spaceship and you're in space. And then they like go, like when they see the princess's ship, they go back in, they wear the mask still, but Jack doesn't. And then Jack puts one on and they fly out, but then there's gravity on the ship. And when they enter the ship, the princess and her side character, whose name is
Uroku or Uroko, sorry.
Uroko? Yes.
Yeah. I mean, I can forgive them for not wearing masks because they're aliens, so...
Right. But then, like, I mean, the gravity still exists, and then they go into the ship and they take their masks off, and it's like, and like you said, later on, like, they don't wear masks, and gravity still exists, and a whole planet moves, and there's no gravitational issues, and
it's just
Earth's
fine.
moon,
no problem would happen if a
Earth's
planet
moon blows up.
Yeah, nothing would happen if if the moon was just casually blown up, no disaster.
If anything, if Gorath, the Transformers, the movie, and Transformers Dark of the Moon has taught me anything, Earth's moon's very important. If another planet came to Earth, or it wasn't even the Transformers the movie, it was the TV show. It was the show. Like,
it was the first season.
Like, the end of the world will come, but it doesn't. Nothing happens. That's one thing about this movie is the movie does not care about anything scientific, whereas War in Space did.
Mm-hmm.
Granted, I'm pretty sure if Venus blew up, there would be some gravitational problems throughout the universe, or the solar system, and you have like the whole fact there would be a shock wave, probably some solar flares, some major radiation problems. But it's 70s sci-fi. Who cares about like actual science?
Yeah. I mean, the thing is, it just the whole script kind of has this issue where like it just dances around certain things like that. I mean, there's like a whole section where the characters, they crash their ships on like a red planet later on, mm-hmm. and then eventually they somehow got off that red planet with their ship. I guess they just repaired it off screen somehow.
Yes.
On a desolate planet with like one extra guy to help them.
Right.
And the movie just completely skips over that.
There's a lot of stuff that the movie doesn't worry about the subplots even when it establishes them.
Mm-hmm. It doesn't worry about the fine details of its story.
No, it's too busy trying to move to the big grandiose fight. Mm. Even like the characters, like their reactions sometimes are just dull.
Mm.
And it's like, what are we doing here? Like, why are we doing this? And like one that made me laugh was General Garuda leaves. And he just so happens to arrive on the planet that our 4 main characters are on. Yeah. And he's in a bar with Boba 2. And he's drinking and he's drunk. And he gets this shot of, I think it's tequila, but he says it tastes like scotch. And then the seed just magically is in it. And he's like, did you put something in my drink? And the bartender says, no, why would I? And he just goes with it. He's just like, okay, what's this seed? And then...
And he decides to keep it.
And he decides to keep it, and then he just so happens to break into our main character's house and crash, like, off-screen, so that when they come back... I'm pretty sure when they come back, Jack gets a seed, and they're all talking about it with the princess and Uroko, who they've brought back to their house.
Yeah.
And that's where she's like, oh, you guys are the chosen one. And Garuda is like overhearing it and watching as like they argue and whatnot and fight. Because Jack is greedy. He reminds me of another character from a Japanese show or movie that wears like the same hat. And I want to say it's a Godzilla movie that like corrupt like crazy punk that wears that exact same hat. And I don't know what character he reminds me of, but he reminds me of a character, and it's going to drive me nuts until I figure out who it is.
I hope you never figure it out.
Thanks, Rex. Your support's highly appreciated.
You're welcome.
So they argue, and then they find out that they're the chosen ones, and she's like, oh, you guys are it. You're the ones. And then General Garuda just walks out of nowhere and is like, excuse me, but what is this seed? And then we get the exposition dump about the legend of the eight dog chronicle, which is 8 heroes going to save the world or the race of people from the Gurvanas. And this is where everybody's like, nope, not going to do it. And the reasoning for it is Garuda's just one person. He can't fight by himself. And he says the people that have been chosen are not fighters. Jack is greedy and doesn't want to do it. And then Aaron and Sonata's character, they're hippies and they don't like war. And they're just like, nah, we don't want to fight. Whereas Mia's like, you guys are awful. So she leaves. And the princess and Oroku leave too, but they come back. Mm-hmm. I was confused. I was like, okay, what happens after this? She leaves. She goes flying somewhere. I don't know if she's just blowing off steam or what, but then she gets a seed. So now we have 5 of the 8, right? Yes. We have Sonata.
Your order's
Aaron.
A little off, but yeah.
No?
Your order of events is a little off because she doesn't leave until Shiro, Jack, and Aaron have sold the princess off to
that's
witch lady.
Right. That's right. That whole subplot that is awful.
Yeah,
I was getting ahead of myself.
Really be there.
Can you explain that part since I completely
yeah, so basically, for money, Jack, after, having a little discussion about what they should do with the princess, Shiro, Jack, and Aaron decide that Jack is going to help them, allegedly. So he brings the princess and Uroko to this witch, and she says that she's going to help them, yada, yada, yada. Uroko, Jack, and a servant of the witch, who is actually her son, go off, and Jack and the son try to kill Uroko. They seemingly kill him, but he actually survives. And, the witch tries to get the princess to marry her son.
Which is this... He was born on Pluto, and he's a lizard person.
Yeah, he's got like a weird lizard face for some reason.
And we should also add that the woman is a human.
Yeah.
So none of this makes any sense.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter.
But it doesn't matter because the Gavanas show up anyways right after this and just kill... Well, they don't kill the witch, but they kill her son and take the princess.
Also, there's a cool light whip here. That's basically the lightsaber for the movie.
Yeah. Then they blow up the house.
And then we find out Oroku is okay, and he's like, no, come back. And it's like, dude, your screaming's pointless, but okay.
Yeah.
So that's when Our Mia
when
character.
Maya finds out, that's when she leaves.
And then she gets a seed, she comes back.
Forgives him, I guess.
Right. And isn't this where they have a change of heart? And like,
yeah, I mean, they all have like dreams about the Gavanas. Yes. With Aaron having a dream that essentially just communicates to the audience that he's in love with her,
which makes no sense.
Goes nowhere.
Yes, it makes nowhere. It doesn't.
It adds nothing to the film. Outside of just a bit of character motivation for him. That's all.
And some awkward staring.
Yeah, that's it.
I wrote in here, I really want to know where the love plot came from. Like, it appears and disappears. It's here for no reason. Whereas Jack and Sonata's character just have this.
I mean, perhaps it comes from the original story, maybe, where it could be more fleshed out. Maybe.
So Aaron's supposed to be our Luke Skywalker, I guess, at this point, even though he relates more to Han. So,
I mean, he's too forgettable of a character to be Luke Skywalker.
This is true. Aaron, the movie tries to sell Aaron as our main character because he's the one who goes through the hero's journey. He has the refusal of the call, and whatnot. He has those character journey moments.
Yeah,
but
like we've got Hiroyuki Sanada here, so like
who brings a lot more energy. Jack is a lot more
memorable.
Mira is more of the hero type.
And then you've got Vic Morrow as the
leader.
Yeah, the leader.
So Aaron quite literally does nothing, even though he feels like they're trying to sell him as the main character.
Yeah, and we've still got like another character to introduce who doesn't show up later on, who honestly ends up feeling more relevant by the end.
Right, because he does more, which makes sense, but we'll explain that. So everybody but Aaron gets a seed. And they're like, let's combine our spaceships together to make one big one.
I mean, Aaron had already found a seed earlier, but then he threw it away. And he's just mad that it hasn't come back yet.
He pouts like a child.
Yeah. Which the characters point out.
Yes. This is the birth of Sentai. Let's merge our three ships into one. And then we'll have an ultimate one, and then let's separate. That was the Toei board members in the planning room for Super Sentai. Between Spider-Man and Message from Space, we got Super Sentai. That's not actually true, but
because Spider-Man definitely predated Sentai,
It
and
did.
So did this, yeah, definitely.
So as they're pouting, the princess is taken captive.
And then the Gavanas look through the memories of the witch. I call her the witch. She's not actually a witch.
But she looks like a witch.
Exactly.
Which is how they find out about Earth.
And the Gavana man is like the leader of the Gavanas, Rocksayer? I think that's how it was pronounced. He's like, what is this planet? This is beautiful. I must conquer it. And that's his goal for the rest of the movie. Take over the Earth.
Yeah. Yeah, it's Roxa, the seventh, if we're being technical.
I see. I'm just going to call him Roksha.
Fair enough. So this is where the planet they're on turns into Gorath.
Mm-hmm.
Suddenly,
they're even moving it like the Earth in Gorath.
Yes, they are. So there's a bunch of dishes, like satellite dishes, on one side of the planet that are actually like exhaust
which is pretty
pits
similar to Gorath.
Mm-hmm.
Where they have those little bases in like Antarctica,
right? That push Earth out of Gorath's way.
Yeah, exactly.
So they launch and they're like, it becomes the Death Star essentially, but it's a planet. It's like Gorath and the Death Star had a child.
Yeah, and the moon is Alderaan. It literally is so.
It is. So they're on like fast track to Earth. Aaron's still pouting. Oroku made his way back to their house. He's injured. They're caring for him.
Yeah.
Sonata.
He forgives them, I guess, very quickly.
Very quickly. It doesn't really matter, right? None of this matters. It doesn't make any sense. This movie screams at it. Adam Wingard would love this movie as a space opera. Adam Wingard said GVK was his submission to do a Star Wars movie. Message from Space is Adam Wingard
should remake Message from Space.
Absolutely, he would do a great job. He could beat for beat do everything.
With the spirit.
He would do. It would be in such high spirits of the original.
Adam Wingard's first good Japanese adaptation.
Because he would understand that nothing matters. Just get to the fight.
I mean, ironically, this movie takes its time to get to the final battle.
This is true, but I will say, I mean, throughout all this, we've been bringing up how there's a bunch of just stuff that's thrown out. It's still interesting.
Oh yeah, this film was pretty entertaining throughout. Honestly, I probably found it more consistently entertaining than War in Space was, because
it doesn't slow down.
Yeah, exactly. War in Space, I felt just kind of dragged in the last half of it.
Mm-hmm. When we get to the end of all of this, I really want to dive into comparing them, since I view them as a perfect double feature.
Mm-hmm.
But no, you're absolutely right, and I think part of that too is just in the slow parts, Jack, who is a very high energy character, keeps the energy going as his character, which is really interesting. And then, I mean, a lot of it's just high energy already. I mean, Aaron and Sonata's character, they're naturally high energy.
I mean, the only low energy character here really is Vic Morrow, frankly.
But I like his character enough that his low energy works. He's
definitely.
He brings the swagger. Just humor me with the term.
I feel like you're setting up for another Don Fry comparison.
He just brings the swagger that it's yeah, you're a badass.
Yeah.
Just like Don Fry.
Yeah, no, I'd actually agree with that, honestly.
And then he has his companion, his robot, which that's a very interesting dynamic. It's established throughout the film that he, everybody else, views robots as machines.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas he looks at them as valuable partners, which might be a little scary. But it's interesting to see him care about his robot and treat them like actual living human beings, whereas everybody else doesn't.
Mm-hmm.
He's frowned upon for his compassion for robots, and even the robots acknowledge that he has compassion for robots, which is a really nice touch.
Mm-hmm.
So as the planet's heading towards Earth, our main heroes, Aaron finally gets a seed, and they all speed off to try and get to the princess. And as you brought up earlier, they crash land on a red planet where we're introduced to arguably the most interesting character in this movie.
Yes, Prince Hans, played by the legend himself,
Sonny Chiba. And he is so good in this role. I love it.
In spite of his fairly limited screen time, all things considered.
And I feel like when he is on screen, it's Sonny Chiba, so he brings so much.
Yeah.
But his he's mostly covered. You can't really tell it is him unless you're looking for him. Because he has that face paint. He has the facial hair, the mask, the whole set, suit,
and a lot of armor.
Yes, but you know it's him because of just the charisma and like the acting. Like he's big. His acting is big to me.
It's goddamn Sonny Chiba.
Yeah.
On a space horse.
On a space horse with a sword.
Yes.
This is where we find out he's supposed to be the actual ruler of the Gravana's, but was
overthrown by Rockshia and his mother,
who are his like cousins, I guess.
I don't know. They killed. I don't think they were actually related. I don't think so. But they killed. They killed Prince Hans's family. Yeah.
Yes. Which I thought was a really interesting concept. The idea that the Gravanas are not actually a naturally evil race. It's the ruler that did it. I thought that was really... I like that. I like that idea.
Yeah, I definitely liked having Sonny Chiba as being one of the Gravanas who's just gone a separate way due to being exiled.
Right. And I wrote that Sonny Chiba is Obi-Wan, ? I mean, he has an Obi-Wan moment later that we will talk about. So, like,
I definitely
to me...
picked up on that. I felt like him and Vic Morrow's character are sort of like the Obi-Wans of his... Mm-hmm. Andrew Rocker, I guess, as well.
Maybe. Maybe. I don't know if I would agree with the Rucka.
Maybe I'm just thinking that because he's old.
See, his character feels so out of place because he does have a dramatic character change at the end.
Yeah.
I mean, it makes sense why he would have that, but also it doesn't.
It makes sense, but it happens so quickly that it doesn't make sense.
Right.
The pacing of this film is a bit odd at times, and that's... I definitely think that's probably the most egregious example of it.
Yes. But before we get into that, so the Gravanas tell Earth, surrender or perish. Our main characters now, we have Hans, Aaron, Sonata's character, and Maya, who all have... Oh, and Jack, who all have seeds. 5 of the 8. We're only missing 3. They are prepping to go because they know it's about time. They find not on Earth, but on Earth when all of the chaos
Jack's
ensues.
Been kidnapped by the Gravanas at this point.
That's right. Jack has been kidnapped. He was kidnapped whenever they came and took, or the Gravanas just magically appear and attack them.
They just took Jack for some reason
and blew up their house.
Yeah, and then they went to go look for Jack, which led to them crashing onto the Red Planet.
Right, which is where they met Hans. But the seeds made them crash.
Yeah.
So like everything happened for a reason, but why would the Gravana? I don't know. It just feels weird that the Gravanas helped that happen.
Yeah.
It's the Force. The Force brought it.
Sure. Let's just hand wave away the writing.
It's all in the Force.
Yeah.
So Jack's abducted. Mia, Aaron, and Sonata's character and Hans are prepping to go with Oroku. On Earth, the Space Federation leader steps down and a Japanese leader steps up. Ironic, right? It's a Japanese movie.
Mm-hmm.
Who then seeks General Garuda because they were in college or like the military together, and they did theater together where Garuda played Don Quixote, and the Japanese leader now played Sancho Panza. And the only reason that I know who these characters are is I watched Alf, and in season 1. Episode Don't Make Your It Ain't Easy Being Green, Alf talks about how he had to play Don Quixote and how he used a magical tooth to play Don Quixote. and Sancho Panza. So
By the way, guys, this is the #1 Alf fan, I should mention.
The fact that I could give you the title of the episode and what season it is in, I feel like gives something. It ain't easy being green. I can give you a whole plot synopsis too if you want me to.
Jesus.
So, okay. This is where the movie starts picking up speed and going like 100 miles per hour everywhere. So, our main characters are on their way to the flying planets. General Garuda, just the seed comes back to him when the Japanese leader and him are talking, and he's proposing he be an envoy to try and give the Earth time to fight back. When he's proposed this, the seed appears in his drink again, and he decides to take the offer.
Yeah.
He's sent to the planet to meet with our villains. Upon arrival, they try to disgrace the human race by laughing at Jack as they release him. And then because of this disgrace, Garuda
challenges them to a duel.
Which this part was funny because the duel...
It's a Western duel.
It's a Western duel, and Garuda's opponent tries to cheat and fails miserably. And then, like, he gives him mercy, but the funny thing is because it's a Japanese film, and giving your opponent mercy, and I know this because I watched The Hidden Fortress, notice the similarity here, because Garuda gives him mercy, he's actually disrespected more than Jack ever was. And because of that, our main villain character decides to dispatch of him really quickly. This is where Garuda is like, you need to give the Earth time because we have rebels that will fight back. And he does not take the trap. And he sends Garuda back to tell them that they have to surrender or prepare to die.
After blowing up the moon.
After blowing up the moon. Also, I completely missed the part where all the World War II nuke metaphors were. So while the planet is like traveling to Earth, the Space Federation sends 3 of its like star battleships to destroy them.
Yeah.
And while they're doing it, like mushroom clouds are everywhere and like they're just destroying the planet. And like it's heavily implied that the people that are trying to survive are like genocide happens and they all die. Like you literally see their bodies like be engulfed in flames. But later on, like it seems like there's more of them than ever before. I don't know if you picked up on that too, but I was like, okay. So everybody's fine. Like, to me, it was like, okay, the Space Federation tried to defeat the enemy, and they used the most deadliest of weapons, and they ended up using nukes, and it just made the villains angrier and destroyed the race of people that were trying to seek refuge. Maybe I was reading too deep into it, but...
Remember, nothing matters in this film. It's all stupid anyways.
This is true. Unfortunately. But yeah, jumping back here, the moon's gone. It gets Alderaan. And at this point, the Earth should be destroyed. Like, tidal waves should be ensuing and everything. But it doesn't. Everything's actually fine.
Yeah.
When Garuda's on his way back to Earth, he decides that he wants to go back and fight. And this is where Jack, Garuda, and Boba 2 halo jump back onto the planet. And Aaron in space with no mask on, and there's gravity. As Aaron, Maya, Hans, Oroku, and Sonata's character meet them on the planet. And this is where it turns really Star Wars-y. They end up meeting. They just so happen to all meet They've met the species of people trying to survive. They're all together.
Baby gets one of the nuts as well.
They just so happen to have plans to how the villains have their base set up.
Yeah.
Through the 8 seeds. We now have 7 of the 8 characters. Right as they're prepping to attack, they're ambushed and everybody's taken captive.
Yeah.
During this time, too, it's established that they're planning on destroying the planet, and Oroku doesn't want that because it's his planet.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe Thor Ragnarok stole some stuff from this movie.
Definitely. Taika Waititi definitely looked at Message from Space for inspiration.
Yes. Just like how Stanley Kubrick watched An Invasion of Astro Monster and took inspiration from it. Yes. Japanese cinema is what created all of cinema. And I'm tired of pretending like it didn't happen. So
you having a Joker arc would be really interesting to watch. Just saying. It would be really interesting.
I see. I'm curious how you think that would go.
It would perhaps be the most entertaining. Well, actually, I know one other. Ironically, I know another Elijah who. Yeah, that was interesting.
Who's your favorite Elijah?
You, because you're not completely insane.
Oh.
Keyword being completely.
That was pretty good.
You make it sound like I'm joking.
You're not joking. That's why I laughed.
Exactly.
So anyway, back to the movie. So all of our characters are in one spot now, and they're all captive, and our main villain says that surrender now or die. And then he
one of you has betrayed you all.
To nobody's surprise, Oroku doesn't want the planet to be destroyed, so he switches to the dark side.
Yeah.
The dark side has flown through.
He switched in 5 seconds after being told the planet was gonna die. So I guess he had the Gavanis on speed dial.
Yeah, it would have been cooler if he was a secret spy the whole time. Or something.
But he wasn't.
So it makes no sense.
Yeah, he just had him on speed dial.
And then the power of the nuts compelled him to switch sides yet again.
Yeah.
Where he's almost killed, and then we find out he's the 8th member of our group of ragtag heroes to defeat the villains.
Mm.
And from this point, Hans becomes awesome, and everybody else is escaping to the ship.
Yeah.
So it quite literally is get everybody on the boat to get out of there as Sonata and Eren get on in their spaceships and blow up the planet.
Yeah.
Mia's also involved. They pretend to be a meteorite, and they split into 3, and then they fly real low until they can get in.
Mm-hmm.
While this is all occurring, Hans is being Obi-Wan Kenobi and
takes absolute charge of the situation.
Yeah, he kills 90% of everybody.
Yeah, going in to fight Rockshia even.
Yeah. So, he's sword fighting and just annihilating everybody, and even when you think he's, losing, he just somehow is a badass and wins.
And honestly, best part of the film.
I agree. I concur. So, while they're doing that, Garuda and everybody else is getting out, fighting. They get to the ship, they're prepping, they're getting everything started. Eren and Sonata successfully blow up the reactor, and the entire planet starts to blow up. Hans gets into the palace and fights the villain, and Roxa has like two swords. He's dual wielding Darth Maul style. Not really. He's just dual wielding 2 swords. And Hans has one. And like, if this is Star Wars, you'd think Hans would die. Like, I was fully expecting Hans to die here.
Yeah.
But like, eventually Hans just stabs him in the face.
Yep.
And then
kicks him out the window.
Where he falls right in front of his mother, and then like the whole room blows up.
Yeah.
Plot convenience got a plot convenience. And then, so...
I mean, hey, it's Sonny Chiba.
This is true. So at this point, like, you would think that he would stay and like die on the planet, right? Like with his empire. But he somehow magically gets to the boat.
Yeah. Doesn't it happen off screen as well?
Yes. And like they're saying only women and children, but then everybody appears. Besides the leader who sent the 8 seeds out and who told them the plans of the reactor and has basically been the leading plot convenience person this whole movie, finally decides that he's going to stay and die on the planet and let everybody else go. Basically saying that their race is not a place, it's a people.
Okay, now I see a full Ragnarok comparison, actually.
Ragnarok style, yeah. And so they lift off, he dies, the planet blows up, and Earth contacts them and is like, we're welcoming everybody back to Earth. And that's when everybody decides, no, they don't want to go to Earth. They're going to go find a new planet and colonize it. And with that, they sail off into the galaxy, never to be seen or heard from again, besides Sonata, who does return. So this film also reeks of the 70s. Like, Eren looks like a 70s dude. Both Sonata and Eren have these outfits that look undoubtedly 70s, and the hairdos are undoubtedly 70s.
You see, I love 70s outfits, so A-okay with me. We should bring...
Likewise.
We need to bring that style back, man.
I would agree.
We need to bring it back.
So, this movie is like the Star Wars equivalent to Godzilla vs. Kong. But I also think it's fine because...
It's not Godzilla vs. Kong.
Right, and like, it doesn't try to be more than it is. It's just a goofy 70s movie. Mm-hmm. And sure, you can argue, well, GVK is just a 2010s blockbuster. Yes, but also like it's an established serious franchise, whereas Message from Space is not meant to be serious. Mm-hmm. It's just not. It was meant to cash in on Star Wars, and it's very obvious it was.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, especially with that damn music.
Yeah, yeah.
That they played like 12 times or something like that.
Yeah. So, do we want to dive into the cast and crew of this, and then loop back around to War and Space comparisons, and then wrap it up?
Sure. Let's talk about the great cast here.
So before we do, I wanted to bring up there was actually a total of 3 producers on this film. I've already brought up one, but you also had Benjiro Umura, who was the founder of Tokushinka. Toho.
Oh, wait.
Tohokushinsa.
Tohokushinsa. Wait. Have I been pronouncing this company's name wrong?
Because it's Toho
Oh my god.
Kushinsha.
I just realized I've been pronouncing it wrong this whole time.
God.
Now,
get your Japanese pronunciations right.
Oh, as if you're any better.
I am.
No,
Toho
I've heard your
Kushinsha?
pronunciations before.
Toho Kushinsha.
Whatever. Let's go with that.
He was the founder of it. Of that company, who worked on like Lupin the Third. Garo falls under that company, so he was the one behind Garo, Garo Red Requiem.
Good movie.
And he also worked on Spirited Away, the Studio Ghibli film, which I thought was interesting. Beyond him, you also had Yoshihori Watanabe, who worked on Hikaider, Kamen Rider Zeo. He worked on tons of Kamen Rider and Super Sentai. He was really prolific in Toei. He's even the one that pitched the idea to do the Kamen Rider belt merch.
Really?
Mm-hmm. He also was a screenwriter on Kikaida, and he worked on Ring as an editor.
Yo.
I found that only on one source, but
wait, which Ring?
Ring 1998. Okay. 98. He worked as a video editor on it, apparently.
Incredible man.
You also had, for special effects, Yoshiyuki Nakamura. He was the director behind the effects. He established the Tokusatsu Research Institute that worked on Kikaida 01, Akumazer 3, Spectreman, Giant Robo, Ultraman Taro, Ultraman Leo, tons of Super Sentai and Kamen Rider. He worked on Gappa the Triphibian Monster. He was a protege of Super Raya, I believe. Mm-hmm. So he was working. He was the director of the effects for this film.
Yeah.
But beyond that, our cast, we have Vic Morrow, who was General Garuda. He was in Humanoids from the Deep, which is a Roger Corman sci-fi film. Unfortunately, something he's really notable for is he died in a helicopter accident during the filming of The Twilight Zone. The
Twilight Zone, yeah.
Mm-hmm. He was in Ironside with Raymond Burr. He was in a few episodes of that.
Really?
A little connection to Godzilla King of the Monsters there with Raymond Burr. Besides, he was an American actor, so he didn't really do a whole lot. Tokusatsu. Of course, second billing, you had Sonny Chiba, who was a Fukusaku regular. He was in Invasion of the Neptune Men, Terror Beneath the Sea, another Toei film. Golden Bat, another Toei film. The Bullet Train, 1975. Wolf Guy, both Toei films. Samurai Reincarnation, which was a Fukusaku film, I believe.
Yeah, yes, as well as The Legend of Eight Samurai.
Mm-hmm. And Virus.
He's in that too?
He was in Virus. He was also in Ninja Wars with Sonata. Yellow Fangs, which also had Sonata. Kill Bill Volume 1 and 2. He also got his start in acting in Seven Color Mask and Messenger of Allah, very early Tokusatsu television shows. He also appeared in Robot Detective and was in the Metal Hero series Shirvan.
His brother is a main character in Kamen Rider and is also in Robot Detective.
Really?
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah.
It's also worth noting that Chiba established the Japan Action Club.
Yeah, which had two of the other cast members of this film, Hiroyuki Sanada and Etsuko Shihomi.
Mm-hmm. Who appeared in a lot of Chiba's films as well.
Yeah.
But that club is basically what created how Sentai fight.
Mm-hmm.
So, they were used for a lot of martial arts stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So Power Rangers basically exist because of Sonny Chiba as well.
Mm-hmm.
Rest in peace.
Mm.
Then you had your American actors Philip Kasanoff as Aaron and Peggy Lee Brennan as Maya. They have Kasanoff has no other credits to his name. Whereas Peggy Lee...
He does. He's just a TV actor. Yeah.
Ah, gotcha.
He's a TV actor.
That's why when I looked up movies he was in, nothing came up.
Yeah, no. But this was, I believe, his first... this might have been his first role, I believe, actually.
Yes, and the only reason he got it was because he did such a good job in a theatrical production of Grease, if I remember correctly. That's why he got cast in this. Peggy Lee did a lot of small films, nothing really notable.
Mm-hmm.
But you did have you had Itsuko Shinomi, who was a princess. She was in Legend of Eight Samurai.
Yeah,
Kikaida 01.
One of those Japan action films.
Yes. Kikaida 01, Moonlight Mask, The Bullet Train, Jack Q.
She's also famous for the Sister Street Fighter series.
Yep. You had Tetsuro Tanaba, who played Noguchi. He was in Kwaidan, Prophecies of Nostradamus.
Oh, he's a very, very prolific Japanese actor.
Yes, he was in The Bullet Train as well with Chiba. Tokyo Blackout, Twilight of the Cockroaches, Gozu, and Japan Sinks.
Mm-hmm.
Miko Narita, who is Roxia, was also in Samurai Reincarnation, Ninja Wars, Legend of Eight Samurai. All three of those have Sonny Chiba in it.
He was also detective in the third female prisoner Scorpion film.
Makoto Sato, who was Iroko, he was in the H-Man. He was in the Hidden Fortress. Mm-hmm. There's our connection to Hidden Fortress and the Lost World of Sinbad. Next on the billing, we have Hiroki Sanada, which this was his 9th film credit, according to Wikipedia, which I don't know if I trust that, but this was still
probably wrong.
it was very early on in his career, but he was also a child actor, so he did do some stuff.
But he would actually go on to be the main star of the spin-off TV series, Message from Space Galactic Wars.
Which he was the only returning actor for that show.
Yeah, but I don't think he plays the same character.
Which is weird. Sonata was in Ninja Wars, Legend of Eight Samurai, Yellow Fangs, Ring, Spiral, Ring 2, Jack Q, Message from Space Galactic Wars. He is he is probably Japan's most popular actor.
Yeah,
he was in,
especially in the modern day.
Yes, he was in 47 Ronin, The Last Samurai, the
American
Wolverine.
47 Ronin.
Yes. Twilight Samurai, Avengers Endgame. I think he appeared in Hawkeye, John Wick 4.
He's only in Hawkeye for stock footage from Endgame.
Gotcha. Wasn't he in The Bullet Train as well?
Yes.
The Brad Pitt film?
Yes.
But he has no connection to the actual 75 film.
Yeah, no connection to the Sonny Chiba film. This one's based on like some Japanese book.
Yes. You had Ishami Shimizu, who played Beba 2.
Yeah.
And this was his only credit I could find.
Allegedly, the Japanese voice for Beba 2 is Machiko Soga, though, who played the witch Bandora in Zyuranger, aka Rita Repulsa in Power Rangers.
I love that. Jack was played by Mazumi
Okabe.
Yes, who was in Invasion of the Neptune Men, which was one of Chiba's earliest films.
Yeah.
The Beast and the Magic Sword, which was an American production produced in Japan. You had as Kamesasa Noboru Mitani, who was in Parasite Eve, Sweet Home, Evil Dead Trap, Legend of the Stardust Brothers, Gavan, Shidire?
Oh,
Scheider, yes. The Metal Hero series. Samurai Reincarnation, Ultraman Taro, Return of Ultraman, and the Akira Kurosawa film, Dodzilla-Dan. Hideo Amamoto, who played Dark.
Which is Rockshia's mother. He's a pretty prolific tokusatsu actor, having been in various Godzilla films like All Monsters Attack. He's the old man in GMK. And he's Doctor Who in King Kong Escapes. And then he's Dr. Shinigami in Kamen Rider as well.
He was also in The Birth of Japan, Yojimbo, Gorath, Matango, Atragon, Dogora, Ghidorah, Kwaidan, Ebra, Ultra Q, Mighty Jack, Return of Ultraman, Ultraman Leo, Zubat, Little Superman, Ganbaron, Jack Q, Machine Man, The Red Spectacles, Iko Azuku 2, Kamen Rider the First. He's probably the most qualified or most tokusatsu listed actor on this list. He's not the most qualified. Sanada is. You had Junkichi Orimoto, who was in Kwaidan and The Return of Godzilla, and Harumi Soni, who was in Legend of Eight Samurai. Gozu, he was also the producer of that. He was in Izo, Tokyo Zombie, and Blood. So yeah, you've got, like, this was a very stacked cast.
Yeah.
And that's all I had for the cast and crew. There's still tons of other people, but those I wanted to highlight. If you want to, Rex, I kind of want to dive into the comparison here of War in Space and Message from Space.
Yeah, sure.
Unless you wanted to. So, both of these films took influence from Star Wars, but also took Japanese influence as well. Both from Toho films. I mean, to say Gorath did not influence Message from Space, I think is kind of ignorant. And then we know Atragon influenced War in Space.
Yeah. I mean, as we stated in our episode, War in Space feels a lot like, you know, a culmination of a few different Toho films like Mysterians.
Right. We said it earlier, but I'm going to repeat it. I was more entertained with this film than War in Space.
Oh, definitely.
The script of War in Space makes more sense, but it also just...
It's not as interesting or, as you said, entertaining.
And I feel like the world's... I mean, they go to Venus, which everybody, like, Venus is not... I mean, it is new, but it's also not. Like, it's within our solar system. So it doesn't feel, like, Star Wars-y.
Yeah, the world is... The sci-fi elements in War in Space are less prevalent. The whole Star Wars influence doesn't even really come into play until the second half of the film.
Right.
Whereas here, from start to end, this is very clearly, you know, a sci-fi space opera.
Right. And I would even argue that War in Space is more akin to your 50s space movies than space operas.
It definitely feels more like 50s, 60s Toho sci-fi than a Star Wars knockoff up until that, you know, that sort of last bit of the movie.
Right. And, like, I love Toho sci-fi, but I can see
it's
all
just
of that
been done better.
Yes. Whereas Message from Space undoubtedly feels like a 1970s Star Wars knockoff that
had enough possible way.
that had enough talent behind it to create something of decent value.
Yeah.
The script is a disaster. I think it's obvious that between your three writers, you had too many cooks in the kitchen. And it shows.
But dare I say, it was more... I had more fun with it than perhaps even the original Star Wars. Controversial opinion.
I mean, to be fair, the original Star Wars is a lot longer.
Yeah.
And there's a lot more world building it attempts to do, whereas...
Yeah. Oh, I'm not making any argument that this is a better film. God, no.
Right.
But I do find this a little more entertaining. I think the last...
It's easier to chew.
Yeah, I don't find the last stretch of Star Wars all that entertaining. That whole Death Star run is iconic, but too long for me.
If you are looking to, like, Star Wars, I feel like you put in to watch and, like, follow. It's not really a background movie, but Message from Space definitely could be. Like, you don't really need to follow it to it's just like whenever you join in on the movie, you basically are where, like, you have all the info you need. And I appreciate that. So for me, honestly, it's weird to say this, but I think Toho dropped the ball on the Star Wars knockoff.
Yeah, that was the exact wording I was going to use. Damn you.
it goes to show that Toho was really trying to rush and beat everybody to everything by the late 1970s. Mm-hmm. And I think it came back and kind of hurt them because Toei waited and Toei delivered something better, in my opinion.
I mean, the Toei head was annoyed that Toho beat them to it.
Right, but I think it ended up being worth it because...
Oh, definitely.
Toei produced something really fun and really decent.
Yeah. Oh, 100%.
So, with that, like, is it time to, like, do our comparisons?
I guess so.
Or not our comparisons, our listings?
I guess so.
I feel like we are both going to have the same list here. Do we want to do what we did last week and just list them off at the same time?
Should we?
Okay. We can.
Okay. What order
we're going to start
for this time?
Best to worst.
Okay.
On the count of 3. 1, 2, 3. The Hidden Fortress. Message from Space. The War in Space.
Damn.
I feel like it all depends on the next movie. The next movie, I think, is going to be whether it, like...
Yeah, the next movie, I think, is where we will either be the exact same or that's where we diverge. I could see it going either way. Mm-hmm.
I already know that I have an opinion.
I have not seen the next film before.
So...
I haven't seen any of these films before, actually. So...
And
for me, it's entirely unpredictable.
And what's funny is I've seen The Hidden Fortress once, I saw War in Space once, I saw Message from Space once, and I've seen our next film once. So for me, this is my second viewing for all of them. For you, it's your first.
Yeah. Have your opinions on these films changed as much as your opinion on the Kawasaki film so far?
So, War in Space... I appreciate... So, I'm going to be honest. Both Message from Space and War in Space, I'm pretty sure I fell asleep in when I watched them the first time.
Damn.
I've grown to appreciate Message from Space more now that I've seen it back-to-back with War in Space, and I think my opinion of War in Space has grown more positive, but I think I've also, like, put it in a position where it's like, you're not great... but I do enjoy you.
I see.
Whereas Hidden Fortress definitely hasn't changed. That, to me, has been pretty consistent.
I mean, it's Kurosawa.
Right.
You know?
It will never be better than Yojimbo. And that, I think, to me, that's the big thing, is I don't know if Kurosawa produced anything that's better than Yojimbo to me.
It's called Seven Samurai.
I disagree. I think Seven Samurai... isn't nearly as good as Yojimbo.
Bad opinion.
I think... See, I feel like anybody who says, like, you could say any other Kurosawa film and you could not objectively be wrong. I feel like he's a director, like, no matter what your favorite is, you cannot objectively be wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if you are a fan of Honda and you say that... Dogora is his best work, you are objectively wrong. But, like, if you're Kurosawa and you say Kagemusha is, you're not wrong. Yojimbo, you're not wrong. The Hidden Fortress, you're not wrong. Rashomon, Dreams.
Ron,
Rhapsody, and...
Ron is beautiful. Like,
I want to see Ron. I've seen clips, and it looks amazing.
It is beautiful. Like, it is one of the best looking films ever made.
See, I want to watch all 40 of his films, but I don't want to watch his later stuff till I cover all of his early stuff.
I've seen one. It is gorgeous looking.
Good to know.
Especially the 4K. I highly recommend. That's a film you got to get on 4K if you get a 4K player.
Well, I'm waiting to see if Criterion sublicenses it into a Kurosawa box set.
Oh, is the 4K not out in the US?
It is, I think. It may not be. I know it's through Studio Canal.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Because here it's like the only Kurosawa film outside of Rashomon that's available.
See, we have a lot of them. They're all through Criterion besides Ron and
I see.
Dodzkaden, I think. Because Dodzkaden was Kurosawa's Russian film, if I remember right. Or no, that's Drezu Uzela. I think that's the Russian film. That was released through Fox Lorber, which has not been re-released since then. And then like
I've actually seen that release on sale before.
And then like I think it's Dueling Guns is another one Criterion had a long time ago, but they lost the rights. They also have all of the post-war Kurosawa films on like an Eclipse box set, like 2 of them. And it's like, that's not good enough. And then like, they at one point had Ron, but it's only on DVD. They've only released Redbeard on DVD. And like, there's like, all of those are still in print besides Ron. And you can buy them pretty cheap. So like, I'm hoping that they release them on Blu-ray, or they do a 40 film box set. That's like $350.
I mean, they did as a Toichi box set, so maybe.
And they've done a Kurosawa box set. It was 27 of his 40 films, if I remember correctly, but it was all on DVD, and they charged like $100 or like almost $1,000 for it.
What?
Yeah, if you look up Kurosawa 100th, it was $400 SRP. That's right. It sells for $1,000 now. It sells for $1,000 now.
Reasonable, I guess, but like still DVD. Nonetheless, it's Kurosawa. Frankly, War in Space and Message in Space did not have any chance. Just being honest.
This is very true. I mean, considering one was a like 90-day rushed film and the other was a cash grab that was bloated with a budget, neither of those are going to compare to a tour doing his work.
Exactly.
But no, I mean, and I really like this movie. I'm going to be honest. Like, I thought it was pretty decent.
Oh, I had good fun with it.
I certainly think I've had the most fun with this film. It's the most fun out of the Star Wars films we've covered so far.
Damn it, I actually agree with you.
Good.
I'm trying. You see, I want to be a contrarian here, but for the first time in your goddamn life, you're speaking straight facts here, and it's disgusting.
I will take that. But with that, I feel like I'm kind of out of things really to say. We've been talking for about 2 hours and 15 minutes here, but this film, like in context, this film's actually really relevant to Tokusatsu, which when I read that, I was like, are you guys just like upselling it? But no, like when you look at it, this film might have saved Toei from absolute devastation come 1980. It was like the unknown gift that gave Toei what they needed to continue through the oil crisis.
I mean, that could potentially still be overselling it, but nonetheless, I definitely agree with you that if nothing else, it definitely helped Toei.
Right.
In the long run. I mean, from what I understand, even though in Japan it wasn't very successful, they still made a profit from the film just through selling it to international distributors,
right?
Who put it on TV and a lot of that.
Because a lot of people wanted it. It was a very much looked at.
I mean, it was riding off the Star Wars craze. So
it worked.
Everyone wanted a piece of that pie.
And it worked. Toei got exactly what they wanted. And they had enough that they could produce a 28-episode series following it.
And I might actually end up watching that.
I need to. I have the Blu-ray. I've just never watched it.
You see, when I was looking up, when I was doing a little bit of a dive on this film, when I realized that Sonata was the lead character, I'm like, hold up, this has my attention.
And, okay, this is the last thing I will say, and then we can go ahead and plug.
Yep.
It's so weird to see him in his younger roles. Like, I only see him as Ryuji. Like, since Ring, he has not aged. Like, to me, that is what he has looked like.
Yeah, it's funny. Like, I'm starting to get used to it, to, like, Sonata's younger face. But, like, I remember I saw, like, clips. I'd heard that there was a Michelle Yeoh movie that he was in.
Yes.
It's called Royal Warriors. And I was, like, looking at clips on that, and I'm like, where's Sonata? And eventually I realized Sonata was just the guy who didn't have a beard, and I'm like, oh, what is this? You're telling me this is Sonata?
Babyface Sonata.
I know. But now I can tell it's him just by looking at the way he holds his lips.
I just want to. I'll say this: Sonata should be in a Godzilla movie. I think he deserves.
Yes. Oh my God. Yes.
I think he should.
Oh my God. Yes. Dream Godzilla movie.
Hiroyuki Sonata playing the main character.
Oh my God, that would be an incredible movie.
Have him play Godzilla. It could work.
Have him fight the Predator.
That could work.
They should do it.
Well, I know they do want to do. Some people have said they want to do a Predator, a Prey sequel, but it's set in like samurai times.
Please, God, do it and cast Sonata.
And people have said
have 10 out of 10 movie.
And people have said they want Sonata to play the samurai.
That would literally be a 10 out of 10 movie.
Perhaps.
It would be.
Speaking of 10 out of 10, Rex, you produce 10 out of 10 content, right?
I know. I do. I really do.
So where can the people find your 10 out of 10 content?
Well, dear listeners, you can find me on YouTube at Rexino, on Twitter at Rex_Xenomorph, and on Instagram at Rex_Xeno. You can also check out some of my writing at the Tokusatsu Network.
Perfect. And as for me, you can find me on YouTube at ET13 Productions, on Twitter at ET13 Productions, or on Instagram at ET13 Productions. As I've alluded to throughout this recording, I am working on a short film, and it will go live on that YouTube channel. I will tweet about it, and I will probably post it on Instagram. So, if you're interested in seeing my upcoming short film, definitely keep an eye out on those platforms. But as for the podcast, you can rate us on iTunes. That boosts our ratings and helps us get recommended to more people just like you. Right now, we're sitting at a solid 3.1, and I think we're worth at least a 3.3. So if we could get some people to leave some 5-star ratings on Apple iTunes, that would be amazing. If you don't have an Apple device, which I don't blame you, I don't.
Lies.
That's a lie. I'm using a MacBook to do this podcast.
He says that every time.
I do. It's almost like this is scripted.
Evil script.
Hey. It doesn't have a purpose. That's not true. It actually does have a purpose. I can't even try to say that this is like Message from Space. You can rate us on Spotify. That's a new feature they have. If you want to stay up to date with all things Kaiju Conversation related, you can follow us on Twitter at KAIJU_CONVERS. If you don't have Twitter, you can follow us on Instagram or like us on Facebook. If you're like me before podcasting and you don't have any social media, lucky you, you can email us at kaijuconversation@gmail.com, all lowercase, all one word, you know the drill. And as always, we'll read your reviews on air for everyone to hear. We also have a Teespring store. Eventually we'll have original artwork, but until then you can sport our awesome logo on a t-shirt or maybe even on a coffee mug. If you'd like to chat with us, check out our Discord server full of others that have similar interests to you. Recently, the conversation had in our server was... Let's see here. The most recent conversation was about Takashi Yamazaki's upcoming Godzilla 0. It's a great community full of great people, have a lot of awesome conversations on there. Definitely check it out. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel and hit the bell so you can be notified anytime we upload a video. We sometimes post exclusives to the channel like bloopers or minisodes. For this episode, there are going to be some great bloopers, so definitely check it out. Our minisodes cover things like news or other subjects that we don't do in main episodes. We also do a monthly live stream, Kaiju Conversation Live. We recently did one with G-Man from Twitter or on the Power Trip podcast, Jack. He's a great guy, great conversation. We've also talked to Danny DeManna of the Godzilla Novelization Project and Nathan Marchand of the Monster Island Film Vault. We also have an interview with Mechagodzilla designer Jared Krzyzewski on the channel. Probably botched his name. I apologize for that. And a huge thanks to Rex for editing all of these episodes and all the other content we upload.
You're welcome.
His links can be found in the description below. Definitely check out his Linktree. He does a lot of work, and it's very good. Along with Rex, we'd like to give a huge thanks and shout out to Danny DeManna of the Godzilla Novelization Project for his amazing vocals on our theme song. You can support him by following him on Twitter at Danzilla93_GNP. Or visit his website, GodzillaNovelizationProject.com. And a huge thanks to Gratton Conwell from the podcast Giant Monster BS for composing the music for our theme song. You can support him by following the podcast on Twitter at Giant Monster BS or on any podcast platform under the name Giant Monster BS. And with that, we're going to wrap things up here. So thank you guys so much for listening to us talk about Message from Space. We have one more Star Wars movie to cover, and then we are going to wrap up these weekly uploads just for a little bit as we slow down and prep for some exciting stuff ahead. And as always, please remember, life's too short to not talk big. Bye, guys!
Bye.
We are set, we are in debt, there's nothing to sweat. Life's too short now, baby. And not too big now, baby. Conversation. His name's Elijah, baby. And also Rex now, baby. We love those kaiju, baby. And you will too now.